I'm just going to hit record. As you know, my name's Claire Adams. I'm the principal here at Parkfield School. But first and foremost, I'm actually an IT teacher and computer science teacher by trade. And my passion is around internet and internet safety. So that's why I wanted to, in this week particularly, which is Safer Internet Day was on Tuesday, just give a chance to speak to you parents about how you can help your children stay safe online as well. So I've got a presentation to just move through, so I'll just share my screen and let you see that. So like I say, it's Internet Safety Week this week, and this just aims to give you a little bit of a guide through of how you can keep your children safe online, whatever age they are really. It's important that we just think about how the children's lives are online and the pressures that can bring, but how we can best support them in the navigation of this online world, which is far more complex than we will have ever known when we were young and at school ourselves. I'm sure, like me, sometimes you think that having mobile phones, if we would have had the same, would have added a great deal of pressure to our lives as well. Just a quick video to show you. I'm just going to play this. So the purpose of that video really is to just remind us that young people don't change. The way in which relationships are formed between friendships of their peer groups is not anything different to how we were. It's just that technology has made it so that the way they do it is different. And you've probably noticed that as you've had your children at home more over the last 6 weeks of this half term. And actually, it's about making sure that we as adults in these young people's lives evolve with the technology, so that we can be well prepared to help them with the changes to the way in which they communicate. Feedback often is around the fact that parents are concerned that there are just a vast amount of apps and sites that children are visiting. But really, it's important just to break that down into there being four main purposes of what a site or an app does. And if you do that, it just becomes a little bit less overwhelming, because you can apply this rule to anything that the young people are engaging with, that it really is just about viewing, sharing, chatting, or friending. So if we take these in turn and we think about them as individual aspects, so thinking about what we're viewing to see, and the questioning that you might have in your mind when your child asks to download an app, or particularly to view a particular website, then you might be thinking about whether or not anyone can post and share content, or is it structured so that you have to be logged in, you are protected by usernames and passwords. You might also want to think about whether or not there is an opportunity for there to be adult material on there that could be viewed, or is that limited and moderated and monitored by the site or the app itself. So what sort of content are they going to be able to view? That might be determined by the age rating of the app or website to be downloaded, or the game indeed that they're playing on their computers. So looking at that is useful as well. Do check out the privacy settings and security settings of the apps. What can you put on there that will mean that perhaps other people can't try and like or friend who you don't know? and what can you do to ensure that you have access to it? So is it that it's actually your username and password that is there, and you can check into that app at any time that you choose to as a parent? And what filters or parental controls are there that can be managed with that viewing platform, so that you can ensure that your children are safe? However, remember that there are never any total guarantees that all of those settings will stop children from being able to see things that you weren't expecting or they weren't expecting. So it's really important that you are open as a family to talking about, if you see something, what should you do that concerns you? Is it that put the phone down and come and speak about it? Is it that you raise it, or is it as a parent that you talk about it and raise those concerns, so that your home is a place where children can talk openly and freely about what they're seeing, and know that sometimes you might see something that you didn't intend to, but how do you manage that is important for our children. So ask yourself, what content can they see on this app, site or game? Is it age appropriate to them? And what filtering or privacy settings can be utilized on the app in order to ensure that it's as safe as you can make it, but it's obviously not fail safe. And moving on to the second one, which is sharing, and just thinking about, what are they sharing? So talking to your child about what they're sharing and why. What is the rationale behind sharing something? Obviously, it can be fun and creative, and we know from TikTok that sharing is a huge part of that platform, but that comes with its pitfalls as well. And it's about how easy it is to share information and how quickly it is to share that online. It's important, again, to talk to your children about the fact they should never feel pressured to share anything. And we'll come on to talking about things that maybe they're pressured to share that they wish they didn't. But talk to them about what their motives are behind sharing information online. And it's important that actually they can protect other people by not oversharing either information or images, particularly if it's not of themselves or information about themselves. That they should not be sharing anything that doesn't involve pertain to themselves, really. That if the information or the images of somebody else, you would have to have consent in order to do that. And it's sometimes easy to end up sharing things online that we would never dream of sharing in the real world. And I think that that's a good test for our young people, is to think, would you share that picture? Would you go and give that out to everybody in the street? Or actually, is it just something that you feel you're doing online because you feel that that's the right thing to do? So again, communication is important, and asking yourself, what are they sharing and who are they sharing it with and why? Because that's important to find that out from them as well. So the chat functions and friending opportunities, we know stranger danger, and our children are very familiar with that. And the internet can be a really fun place. And I think it's important that we don't put the fear into our children, but we put awareness into their minds, so that when they're doing things, they are doing it with a good awareness of safety. But without totally putting them off, because it is the way of life. They are digital natives very much now. We digital migrants just coming to the party a little bit later, but nevertheless getting there in our own right. And it's important to talk to them about who can contact them online. And if you go back to the first part of the before, around the privacy settings and making sure that you know who can contact your child through an app or a website or a game, then it gives you some idea of who they might be chatting with. Thinking about age appropriate material and what they see, it's also important through the chat that you think about the age appropriateness of language that they might hear from other users, particularly if they are playing games where they have headsets on and they might be playing against people that you don't know, and you don't know what language they will be choosing to use. That can't be moderated. That is just happening. And as we always say, being careful about not sharing information of a personal nature so that somebody could potentially come and find you. That's not something that children should be doing at all. And we certainly teach that at school, that not sharing personal information where you could be identified on these social networks is really important. And also thinking about the fact that it's important, if somebody does contact your child and they do become a bit wary of it, that they feel again that there's a trusted adult that they can talk to about it, to just allay any concerns and to share that, because sometimes it can really worry young people that they've made contact, because they might feel actually they had started the communication and then it's got a bit out of hand for them. So they might feel a little bit like, oh, well, you know, I did approach them first. So just again, that openness and asking yourself, who are they friends with online, and whether they are real friends or whether they are only digital friends, and what sort of information are they sharing with them, and could that put them at any danger or risk of oversharing information that might identify them by a school uniform, a photograph of them in a club kit, maybe for football, which could just place them at a particular place. So it's important that it's areas that you think about. So, you know, let's just recap over that. So think about what content can they see, what can they share, and who are they sharing it with, who can they chat with, how and where, and also who can they friend, who can friend them on it. It might be that you want some starter conversation sort of stems that will help you. So depersonalizing it is a good way of doing it. For example, I've heard some people saying that that this is what young people are doing. What do you think about that? Or has anything ever happened to a friend online that's worried you? So that you start to open a conversation, because that's one of the hardest things for our children to do, is come to you as their trusted adult and initiate conversation. So having some idea of how you might initiate conversation can just be a really good way to go around it. And, you know, one question about what things do you do to keep yourself safe online? That's a good question to find out, you know, what level of understanding have your children got already? Because I would imagine it's probably pretty good. And that will reassure you, I have no doubt as well. So thinking about the apps, websites and games, there are none that are more or less dangerous or risky. Really, it's to do with the people who access them and their motive behind why they're using them that is the important thing. And just making sure that our stranger danger translates onto the online world as well, so that people, our children, are just cautious of people and what's being shared with them. The focus for Internet Safety Day this year was around fake news and the fact that we can't always trust what we see, and that translates not only to the information that we read, and sometimes that images can be manipulated, as can stories and text, but also you know, people can be not who they say they are, which can be a huge issue for making sure that we're staying safe with people who approach us to chat and friend. So there are some pointers there. So I said that I would just go on to about sharing images, and this you might think, oh, this is only related to secondary age children now, but actually it's really important that you don't think this can't happen to my children, because we're finding that it can happen to younger and younger age children, where they are being persuaded to share things that perhaps really they wouldn't want to have shared, but they are being coerced into that. So there are many reasons why our young people are claiming to share images. One is that they think they're in a trusted relationship or a friendship where that's fine to do that. They think to fit in with other people because everybody else is saying they're doing it. Well, often that isn't the case at all. Sometimes because they're looking for affirmation of their body image, so they're looking for reassurance. And we see that with the selfies quite a lot, where perhaps they'll take up to 60 selfies before they post one, is the average number, for fun, or just for a laugh. Or finally, like I said before, because they're being pressured into it. And some situations obviously are more risky than others, and show how important it is to understand you know, why we don't share images. As soon as that image has left the mobile phone, that's out of that person's control totally, and there's no getting that back. And although you might have shared it with somebody who you think is a friend, or somebody who you think you're in a relationship with at the time, then that can very quickly and easily turn and become something a bit more negative, which again, from a teaching perspective, is very hard to stop or get back. Because once that image has left the phone, then that has left anybody's control, and can spread very quickly and can reappear at all sorts of different times. And I would always say to the students, if you didn't want your gran to see the picture, don't post the picture. and likewise of anybody else really. So again, I keep saying it comes back to talking to your children about it, and I think that that is the key. Communication is so important. If you get the communication open and the dialogue open in your homes, then actually you can eliminate many of these issues, because your children will feel that they can come and speak to you about it. If you start with a don't do it or a judgment about it, then actually that can stop your children being so open. They're less likely to come. But actually, if you talk to them about the fact that together you can work through it, and trying to distance the conversation from blame, but it's talking about possible solutions, particularly if they've done something where they've shared an image that maybe they wouldn't even want you to see, having that chance for them to speak with you in a trusted and open way will just mean that they're more likely to come forward. And in school, we also have the chance for them to speak to anybody from the safeguarding team, their class teacher or their tutor as well. And it's important also the legality of sending images of an explicit nature is, of course, that it is deemed to be an illegal act, because it would be seen as distribution of pornography, and particularly child pornography if they are under 16, even if they are distributing it of somebody else under 16 to somebody under 16. So the criminal side of it is important for them to remember, that it can cause a lot of problem and a lot of angst. And sharing any image that's come by you, again, without somebody's consent, is also seen as a criminal act, and can also be a form of bullying, really, where we are doing something that may well cause harm or upset, distress to somebody else, which again is a big part of the online issues at the moment with e-safety around that ability to anonymously perhaps bully systematically other people, and we see that in the media a lot. So your children might be really into gaming online, most seem to be, and it's just about being mindful of the fact that these have a lot of chat facilities on them as well. So it is about that interaction, which is great, and sometimes you can strike up friendships with people from other countries, which is obviously brilliant for broadening our horizons, but being aware again, as I say, about the fact that you can't moderate any language or those other users who might be engaging in games with your children. And just the information coming out around the loot boxes now as well, and the fact that there is in-app purchases, or purchase, which means that the children are wanting to spend more and more money on it, and that sort of addiction to that is something that the research is looking at. So just being careful of the amount of money that they have access to spend through those in-app purchases is really important. But same rules apply really to the first 4 sections to the gaming. But just remember that the PEGI rating of games is important to note, and if it is over the age of your child, then it's likely to have content that is inappropriate for them to see. Thinking about sleep, and you've probably seen your child's pattern of sleep just shift a little bit. Maybe they're not getting up so early to get into school, maybe staying up a little bit later because of that. And perhaps a bit more on their screen time. So the effects of the blue light emitting from devices can be problematic, and that can overstimulate, so sleep is harder to come to terms with. So do just think about how you can eliminate the use of mobile devices or tablets before going to bed, just so that blue light doesn't delay the onset of sleep for them. And also, we know that a lack of sleep can cause mental health issues, because it really does help your brain just process when you're asleep. So a lack of sleep can cause us to be, a bit more under pressure. We can feel stressed a little bit more, and can lead to anxiety and depression. And we'll see that in ourselves as adults, and so it's no different for our children. So it's important just to remember that, and also thinking about being in front of the computer for too long, and the impact of sleep on our diet as well, and it can cause us to eat more, and raises risks of obesity in young people at times as well. So lots of things that are linked to sleep, and being aware of how well your child is sleeping, and actually if they are disrupted in their sleep, is that down to their mobile device, Is it that they've got it in their bedroom and actually the notifications are keeping them awake in the middle of the night? And I'll come to that in a minute, but that's something to be aware of. And as I've said about the mental health and that striving for perfection that we see in young people who are trying to emulate images or lifestyles that they see of these people on Instagram, which actually are not true. They're not the life, they're not the image, they are photoshopped imagery, which are making our children try and aspire to something that is unobtainable without a filter. And so how we sort that out and reassure our children about body image is again the dialogue and something that we do here at school. And FOMO, you'll have heard those initials, fear of missing out, that that can be a huge impact, have a huge impact on children and their mental health. That anxiety about not being invited to something or not being a part of something, a chat, a group, or other messaging platforms, then that can be really hard for children to manage and to overcome. And having distractions that don't involve the use of their mobile device or social media, so that they actually are members of clubs in the real world and they can go and they can join in with different things to take them away from their devices and to interact in a human way is a really important thing. Hard, I appreciate, under these times, but we will get back to normal, I have no doubt. And just thinking about future next steps really in careers, and whether your children are wanting to go on to universities or into apprenticeships and jobs in general. I know some of our largest employers locally do search social media for posts that have been written about their employees to see what sort of person they are, what sort of likes they've had, things they've shared, maybe things that they've said. So our digital footprint is really important, and ensuring that our reputation online is as we would want it to be for a future employer or a university to see is a consideration we have to make as we navigate these choppy waters. That digital footprint goes everywhere with you, and your interests and your likes and your shares are all logged against your name and your accounts. So it's important for our children to remember that actually your interests and as your interests and trends change, the footprint that you've left behind doesn't always keep up with that, and it shows everything that's gone before. So just being careful of the things that we are commenting on, the people we are following, is an important thing to do. And as parents, it's important that we're not ostriches about this, and that often I will hear parents say, well, I'm not very good with technology. But I will always say, well, you wouldn't buy your child a car and not give them lessons. And so buying them the most powerful computer you possibly can in a smartphone, and not knowing how it operates and giving them support with it, again, is likened to that. So make sure that you talk to your children about their life online. Who are they talking to? Who are they connected with? And feel that you can look at that as well. That it's a device that you have the right to see as well. Often parents will be the ones paying the contract for definite. And talk to them about how they're staying safe online, because they'll have some great ideas that perhaps you won't have even thought about. And any worries that you may have, ask them to talk to you about it, get them to show you things, learn together about it, and you'll get a great dialogue from them, I'm sure. And the most important thing is that you start early with it. As soon as you give them a mobile phone, a mobile device, then start the conversation, set your ground rules, make sure you agree as a home what it is that you expect and how you're going to operate together, because it's very hard to change routines later. Anything that worries them, make sure they report it to you or a trusted adult, or to the website. Think You Know is a great one, and let them know that you won't blame them for anything. We do things that we maybe regret, and it's about how we unpick it and what we learn from it and how we move on that is the most important thing. And try and direct them to age-appropriate information, and be aware that if they aren't on age-appropriate information, they are likely to see things that perhaps you would have rather they didn't. So as I said, setting your ground rules early is absolutely the most important thing. And suggestions that we make are things like having a power down hour before bedtime for all the families, so everybody has an amnesty on their mobile devices, so that there is an hour where perhaps you just enjoy watching the TV together, you play a board game, you read a book. We're all about literacy here at Parkfield School, so making sure they've got a book to hand, and that's what you do, so that as you're winding down towards bedtime, the light emitted isn't stimulating you so that sleep is difficult. It's actually assisting you in getting to sleep. It might be that you choose to have a central location for charging your devices in a communal area so that you know that they're there and safe. And having that technology-free time is good. And you might consider setting limiters on devices so that there's an hour available on a school day, and then perhaps a couple of hours a day on a weekend, if that's something that suits. So it limits their amount, because it's very hard for children to regulate. You'll know yourself that when you go onto the internet, suddenly 2 hours has gone and you've really not looked or found what you were looking for, but you found a lot of other stuff that you didn't know you were looking for. And it's no different for children. So actually having that prompt that just shuts it down would be a good thing. Keeping their mobile devices or tablets in communal spaces and not having them take that away into a secret area or to a place where maybe there's not as much traffic in the house, because that can really lend them to feeling like they can do things that are a bit more risky because they feel safe, they feel a bit more confident because they're at home. But actually it's about making sure that they know that there might be times where people pass by, and so having that in a communal area in the home or downstairs and not in their bedroom, I think is a really important one. It's super hard to change routines as they get older. Trying to take a mobile device of a year 10 child when you're wanting them to start doing some revision is nigh on impossible. So if you don't start it early and it becomes part of your routine, it's very difficult. And I hear many parents having real struggles with their teenagers when they're trying to get them off their device because they've become wedded to it. So the sooner you can get going with the ground rules, the better. And agreeing them as a family is important. There's lots of other information out there for you on the Think You Know website, so do go and have a look at that if you are interested in finding out more information, or indeed need to report anything of concern. And our advice always is, if there is anything of concern message-wise, then screen print that and do contact the police using their non-emergency number, because they will always make a log of it and do take it very seriously. Often these things happen online outside of school hours, but we're always happy to support where we can, but we'll always direct and suggest you to contact the police if it's of a serious nature. There are other organisations here that you can use to help if you have any concerns, and we are updating all the time our school website, and actually we've now got an e-safety information page with lots of information on that you might want to go and have a look at, and some other videos that you might choose to watch as well with your children, and an agreement on there for digital access, so you might want to do that as a family as we come into half term and start to think about what we're going to do next. And finally, some NSPCC information as well, which is there along with the child line number for you also. So I think the important thing is to remember to open the dialogue and the communication with your young people at home as soon as you possibly can, and ensure that they know that you won't be blaming them for anything. You're going to work through the solution together, and that they remember that posting is permanent and it's very hard to get things back once they've gone, particularly images, and that they need to consider what they post about other people or to other people. Would they want it posted about themselves? And thinking about how it makes other people feel is a good one. And we'll often tell them to just take a breath before you post, and gives you a chance to have a think. So I hope that's been useful and interesting. If anybody's got any questions, do feel free to unmute or post it in the chat, and I'm very happy to take those now from you. I'll just